Hello and welcome to the Purpose Project. Today I'm here with Crystal Field, and she is a master hypnotherapist, and she's also one of our hypnosis students as well, a Tai Chi master. And I'm very excited to have you here today to chat with you, to dive deep with you. And as we already know, how I like to start these off with is how would you define purpose and passion? Do they overlap for you or are they by themselves?
Yeah, I definitely consider them separate things. So, purpose to me is kind of more of an idea of what exactly it is you want to do in this life, which has a lot of things entailed in it. But really, what it comes down to is like who you are and what your true calling is in this life. And that becomes your purpose. Passion is more of a feeling, right? And feelings don't always last, they come and go. So you can be passionate about your purpose, but that doesn't mean you're always going to be passionate. It's very similar to like motivation and discipline. You're not always going to be motivated. And that's where discipline comes in, even though you know you have to do a thing. So, yeah, I think that you can be passionate about your purpose and that they can definitely overlap, but they're definitely not stuck like glue to each other for sure.
Yeah. Thank you. And I really love the way that you explain that too, because as I've shared before in the other videos, is that I kind of had this midlife crisis,
Hmm.
with my hypnosis practice. And I was able to come to the conclusion that it's my purpose,
Mm.
even though I don't always feel super passionate about it, because I've been doing this for almost 6 years. So sometimes a little bit of a spark
Yeah.
comes and goes, but that purpose is still what fuels me. And
Hmm.
so I think it's really important for people to understand and to know that they don't always have to overlap.
Hmm.
This is why,
Yeah.
like, something that I've been doing is that hypnosis is my purpose. I love helping people. What are some other things that I'm passionate about? Such as, like, right now, I'm getting back into animal volunteer work and helping out the animals and doing the sound baths and things of that nature. So thank you for sharing that. I
Yeah.
love that. Love that definition that you have there. So, question for you is how are you acting on your current purpose and passions?
Well, I found my purpose in hypnotherapy. I mean, I've always liked helping people. Helping people has always been so fulfilling for me. And I've known this ever since I was a child.
Same.
It took me some time to find my way. I went through some tech help thinking that that was helping people and this and that. Ultimately, when I found hypnotherapy and hypnosis, it just clicked. And I just knew that this was something that I was meant to do. I became very passionate about it. It was hard work. And there were times when I wasn't so passionate about it, but I dug it in and I kept doing it. And so I went to the classes, I got certified through Blooming Lotus.
Yep.
And then I started working really hard on marketing, which meant I had to learn a lot about marketing. That's a whole game that I wasn't prepared for, but it's been a really good learning experience. And it's been definitely a perspective shift as well. Being passionate about something is, I didn't think that I would have the luxury to do that when I was younger, to be passionate about something that I'm working at my job, my day-to-day job. And now working with my clients is honestly one of the most fulfilling things in my life.
Yeah. And how cool is it too that you're almost full time
I am.
in like
Yeah.
less than a year? Like we're
Yeah.
like 3 months away
Hmm.
for like a full year.
I was determined.
Yeah.
As soon as I was certified, I did everything I needed to do right away because in my mind, I was manifesting that I am a successful hypnotist. I have more than enough clients and that I am a full-time hypnotist as well. And so I really focused on those things to really manifest. And then I aligned all of my actions with those things as well.
Yeah. And I think that is so powerful too when our actions are in alignment with our thoughts. Because
Hmm.
sometimes there's a huge disconnect.
Right.
And as
Yeah.
professional hypnotists, we understand just how important that is for that alignment and how exciting
Right.
that you get to now help your clients with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that is so good. That is so good. And so I'm curious because I know that you joined you like with your friends like before you became a hypnotist as well
Hmm.
too. And so you saw me kind of talking about hypnosis and you
Hmm.
came to some of like the self hypnosis
Yes.
classes.
Yes, I
So
did. Yeah.
talk about that spark, that little passion spark that you first experienced.
Well, honestly, the first time that I became curious was during, I think it was the meditation over
At
at
the Healing Boutique.
Jacqueline's at the Healing Boutique. Yeah. And I heard you guys talking about it and I was like, what? Hypnosis for like mental health? What is that? And I got curious, and I remember talking to Judge a little bit about it. And one of the things I was wondering is like, are you conscious when you're under hypnosis? And he was like, oh yeah, you're totally conscious. And that really got my curiosity going. And then when I went to the self hypnosis, because I saw you guys were doing the workshop, and I remembered that conversation, I was like, I really want to know what this is about. And so I went to that, and I think the thing that impacted me the most was not necessarily like the practice that I was doing for me. It was seeing how you and Judge were impacting everyone else and how it was causing such a positive feedback and people were feeling really good about themselves. And that was really inspiring to me. I was like, wow, that is amazing that these people have been able to take this mode of therapy and be able to have it affect so many people in positive ways. And that really began my curiosity. It took a couple of years for me to really dive into it because, fears, insecurities, stuff like that. But once I did, and once I fully put my both feet in the water, it was just, it was very much obvious that it was clicking in all the right ways.
Absolutely. And so I remember at some point too, you were talking about how like some of your past experiences
hmm
have led you to this point, like also like connecting with a therapist
hmm
who really empowered you to be able to see things differently as well.
Yeah. When I was young, I had a rough childhood, as most of us usually do. It was so impactful when I would go into my therapist's office when I was young. I felt like that was really the only safe space, like where I felt really safe, where I could just express myself, I could express my feelings, and I wouldn't be judged and I wouldn't be told I was wrong or I wouldn't be, shunned or anything. My relationships weren't at risk. And so that was huge for me. And I think being able to have that safe space is what really sparked my ability to be self aware. I've always had a huge interest in psychology, and I've been fascinated by the human mind and how it works and how we're all so unique, but also very much the same in so many areas. And I also have been very concerned with self help. And that awareness came from those therapy sessions of being able to experience what it's like to have a safe space. Now, as a hypnotherapist, one of my main goals, of course, the hypnosis part, is to be able to provide that safe space for them. Because I know what it's like to feel unsafe in this world. And I know what it's like to feel like you've been bottling all of this up in for so many years and that nobody understands and to feel alone. And so I want to be able to provide that place for them to feel connection, to feel safe, to feel like they can let go and they can release things. Because ultimately, I think that's the huge first step towards healing is being able to have that space.
Yeah, most definitely. And I love how basically what I'm hearing is like you're being an alchemist,
Right.
like you're taking this experiences that you had that wasn't so positive and you're being able to make it into positive and using your
hmm
experiences now to be able to provide that safe space and that place of healing for our clients, your
Definitely.
clients to become and
Yeah.
also an alchemist too.
Well, and especially with the fact that I know that I've made so many mistakes, right? I've made a ton of mistakes. I've done things in my life that I'm not going to say I regret because I've gotten past that point, but I definitely have made some mistakes that have made life a little bit harder for me.
Get that?
And so when my clients come in, it's definitely a non-judgment zone. I don't have any judgments towards that. And I make sure that I cultivate a space where they feel like they're completely accepted for who they are. And I think that can come from learning from your mistakes, from accepting the fact that we are all imperfect humans and that we all have our own ways that we trip and fall.
Yeah. And something else too that like I've come to realize as well is that a lot of people, when they seek out help or they seek out guidance, they don't want a guru on top of the mountain.
Right.
But for one, that's not relatable,
Mhm.
like when we can show up as raw, show up as human and making the mistakes, which is really just a mistake, where we can take that knowledge and then we can reapply it and we
Mhm.
can like do better next time or whatever, that it just makes us more relatable. And this makes me think about this quote that people won't remember what you say, but people remember how you make them feel.
Mhm.
Right.
Definitely.
And when we can help people feel safe, feel seen, and feel heard, that is really such a gift. Yeah, that we
I
can give
agree.
people. So I love that. Love that. I want to talk about Tai Chi.
Okay.
because like another passion that you have is Tai Chi, that you've been
Hmm.
doing Tai Chi for a while. You've also been teaching Tai Chi for a while.
Hmm.
So what led you to the passion of Tai Chi and teaching that?
It's been an interesting journey, actually. I've always loved martial arts. I remember being a little kid and watching those Bruce Lee movies. And then I'd be running around the house doing all sorts of crazy stuff. I always really wanted to have that kind of mastery because to me, those masters, it's like they had a secret of life, like they figured out a secret to life. And what I didn't recognize at the time was it was discipline.
Yeah.
And what discipline can do for your mind and body and your spirit as well. And so when I became older and I started taking martial art classes, I started with Wing Chun, which was great, very effective, very practical, but it wasn't quite ticking all my boxes. And so when I found Tai Chi, it was like something just clicked. It probably helped that I also had a dancing background. So I was able to like put dance and martial arts together and it just made my heart really happy. But I also really loved the philosophy of Tai Chi. And the philosophy is no resistance. So everything flows. Everything is always flowing. There's nothing hard. There's nothing super abrasive. Even in the self-defense applications and the more martial applications of it, it still comes down to tapping into the energy of yourself, tapping into the energy of your opponent, and to make sure that there's no resistance, that it's all flowing with each other. And I just fell in love with that because it was such an amazing perspective on not just martial arts, but also on health, on mental health, on relationships, and everything else. It was just really applicable to pretty much everything in life where stagnation is not good for you. And Tai Chi is all about movement and moving the energy. It's all about circles. It's very much attributed to water,
Yeah.
which I love that.
Yeah.
And so it is such a powerful way to be able to tap into your body and to tap into your energy and to kind of bring them all together in harmony. The only way I can describe it is it's almost like a sense of nirvana where you have such a complete connection with your mind, body, and spirit. And when they all kind of align together, even if it's just for a moment, it's so incredibly peaceful.
Would you say that's kind of like the flow state? So that would be
Yeah.
like the alpha, the hypnotic state,
Yeah.
the flow state.
Definitely. And it feels really peaceful. You can talk to your body. You can feel things as you're doing the forms and as you're moving. I always encourage my students, tune into your body. Where is their discomfort? What is that discomfort saying to you? As you're breathing in, because breathing is a huge part of Tai Chi, is using the breath to produce your chi, which is your energy, using that to dissolve away the discomfort, to reinforce the things that need to be reinforced, if it's like a bad knee or a hip or something, and to give it the love and attention that it needs. And so it's been really effective, especially for people who are recovering from injuries or surgeries, to be able to tap into their body, which activates their healing, because we all have the ability to heal. It's just a matter of tapping into it and actually applying it. So I think Tai Chi is an excellent way to do that.
And our body naturally wants to heal. Our body knows how to heal. Sometimes we just need the great tools and being able to remove some of the obstacles out of the way to be able to have our body return back to the state of homeostasis.
Right. Exactly.
So as I was listening to you, there's a couple things I wanted to say. Like I've gone to your Tai Chi classes and I love feeling like a waterbender from Avatar.
Yeah, right.
So I love that.
Yeah.
So it's like one day I'll be able to bend the water. So and then the other thing goes back to the beginning of our conversation about discipline and how that ties right back into purpose. So I thought that was really cool that this has been a path that you've been on for a while. And now like you're here and it's all coming full circle back to discipline and purpose.
Yeah, exactly. And it took some time. I had some hiccups and I was poking around in places that, weren't my purpose, but that was the only way I was able to find it out.
Oh,
So
I mean, it's like one of my favorite quotes I already know about is to fuck around and find out. To fuck around is divine, to find out is human. So how are you going to find out unless you go play around a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you find that maybe your Tai Chi practice has enhanced your hypnosis practice with clients?
Well, I think it comes down to energy for me. So one of the things with Tai Chi, especially with push hands, is you are tuning into the other person's energy just as much as you are tuning into yours.
Mm.
So first that you start off tuning into yourself, right? And then when you get a little bit more advanced, you start tuning into other people's energies. And when you're doing push hands, you're really connecting with them on an energetic level, and you're able to feel their intentions.
Mhm.
You're able to feel what their body's going to do before they do it, because the energy is relaying that to you. And so in a way that definitely translates in the room with my client, because I'm tuning into my client to see what kind of energy they're giving off. If we're going through a specific session or we're working on a specific issue and I can tell they're tensing up and they're getting really rigid, I can feel that. And I can then direct the session in a way that's more beneficial to help them let go and to release that. And so that has really helped a lot in that way, to be able to tune into my clients.
So what I'm hearing is that it gives you spidey senses.
It kind of does. Yeah. Yeah, it does. Because with Tai Chi, you're really exercising that. Our mind is just like a muscle, right?
Yeah.
We really do have to exercise it in order to tune into the amazing abilities that it has.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I love again how everything is just coming full circle for you and how your Tai Chi practice that you've been doing for many years is also supporting your hypnosis practice,
Mhm.
which in return is supporting your clients and getting them better results.
Mhm.
And really just, I would also imagine too, it's also increasing your own confidence within yourself as
Oh
well
yeah.
too.
Sure, yeah.
Trusting yourself, trusting your intuition more.
Mhm. Oh yeah. I mean, the first time I was going to teach Tai Chi, I was terrified. Oh, I was terrified. I was so scared that these people were going to walk in and look at me and be like, "What do you know about Tai Chi?" I mean, some of it was so silly, right? The
I
things
feel
we
that.
come up with in our mind. But I also reminded myself that even though I'm scared, I'm also brave.
Yeah.
And so that was huge.
Yeah.
And then once I just dove into it, it just really started coming together.
And that's true courage, isn't it? Like
Mhm.
doing the thing, like even when you're kind of shaky a
Yeah.
little bit,
I mean, I don't think you can have courage without fear. I think courage without fear is naivety,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So knowing that things could go wrong, but still doing it anyway,
Mm.
that's brave. That's
Yeah.
courage.
That's a whole different level of fuck you're finding out too, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I think it's a Gen Z quote. Maybe it's like alpha, but I love their saying like, do it for the plot.
Yeah.
Do it for the plot. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
I'm here for it. So for anyone who feels stuck on acting on their highest excitement or going after their purpose and their passions, what would you say to anyone who's like feeling kind of stuck?
think the first thing that I would ask is what are you afraid of?
Mhm.
Yeah. Because one of the things that we tend to do is what's the worst that could happen, right?
Yeah.
But then to turn that around and be like, okay, I hear you. The worst is this and this and this that can happen. But also ask yourself, what's the best that can happen?
Yeah.
Like, what does the best outcome look like?
Mhm.
And really focus on that. Because once you figure out that the things that are tripping you up usually revolve around some sort of fear, either fear of inadequacy or, fear of failure, etc. Once you can kind of pinpoint that, I think it's a lot easier to start working with it, to start talking with it, to start having a reasonable conversations with yourself about, okay, is this really realistic or not? And then also you can start to find out as well, like if you're struggling to find your purpose, maybe you need a little bit more fucking around to find out, and maybe the fear is preventing you from doing that because you don't want to waste time or fail. But I
It's
don't
kind of like
think
the scarcity mindset, like
right,
I'm wasting time. Yeah.
right. But I mean, I think that as long as you are trying and as long as you are curious in the process, there is no wasted time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think that's great suggestions. So thank you for that. Is there anything else about acting on your highest excitement, purpose, or passion that you would like to maybe share that we haven't talked about? Anything come to mind at all? About?
Well, I mean, the only thing that comes to mind is speaking, I guess, towards parents, right?
Mm.
Because as a mom, that has had a huge influence on my life. My children have had a huge influence on my purpose
Mm-hmm.
because one of my purposes that will forever remain is being a mother.
Yeah.
And kind of the parallels between being a hypnotherapist and a mother have actually been really interesting to observe in this process because I have become such a better parent by aligning to my purpose and going through this process. And that in turn has really helped me become a better hypnotherapist too. And my children have helped me become a better hypnotherapist as well, because there are reflections of us. Children are amazing. They are tiny little miracles, honestly. And one of the uncanny things that they do is they will always, there's a quote, children will not do what you say, they will do what you do. Right? So they are perfect reflections of you, which can be very triggering for people. Absolutely. If they have something inside themselves that they don't like to admit is there, and then it gets presented to them in their child's behavior, they get very angry, very triggered, very impatient. When I started recognizing the triggers that my children brought up in me, I was able to translate that into fixing my own triggers, but then also being able to see that in my clients, especially since the majority of their issues seem to come from childhood, right? Something happened to them in childhood that carried on and repeated itself. And so not only do I get the perspective of myself and my own self growth, but also through my hypnosis, I get the perspective of all of these different children, because everyone was a child once. All of these children that had all these experiences and all these things that as adults we wouldn't even think twice about, this being an impactful moment for a child, but it was. And so then I can take that information to my own children and start adjusting the way that I treat them and the way that I speak to them, knowing that the way that I am parenting them is going to impact them for the rest of their life. Yeah. And so that's kind of been a really interesting journey. And I'm still learning, every new client that I get. And whenever we go back into their childhood and we figure out what it is that impacted them, I relate that in the back of my head to my own children. And I'm like, so that one time that I was really short with my daughter when she needed help, but I didn't have the capacity to help her in the moment. If I would have spoken to her just differently in this way, it probably would have been 10 times better. And I've actually gone back to my kids, both of them. They are 9 and 13 right now. And I've made a lot of mistakes as a parent. I will totally admit that. I was very young when I had them. But I've gone back to both of them and apologized for my mistakes. And I've told them, look, I've messed up. I have put my anxiety on you. I have put my stress on you. I have been impatient. I have been too sharp and too harsh. And I am so sorry. Your feelings matter to me. You matter to me. So please let me know if I'm hurting your feelings in any way. And I open that door for them to be able to have that conversation with me, which is not something that I would have ever been able to even comprehend before I went into hypnosis. Yeah.
I mean, that is really just powerful. I mean, as you were talking, I was having like little soul sprinkles, as I would call it,
Yeah.
That is just really empowering. And especially being able to see our adults as because they were once kids, like you said.
Right.
And sometimes when they have their own experiences, it's like this emotional resonance of when they were like 5 or 8 years old is bubbling up. And so with that, even with people around us, we can have more understanding and more forgiveness towards them because we understand what's happening. But then also too, just like being a better mother, being a better parent, just being a better person in general. And I'm sure that was like so impactful too, like for your little kids, like for their mom to come to them, be like, hey, like I own up to this, like I'm sorry. And that's really cool. That's been able to really like help and heal like that relationship even on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And that it's really interesting because I don't have any kids myself, but there's definitely times like going to Walmart for an example and like how parents are like talking to their kids and I'm like, oh, I'm going to see you in my office in like 10 years.
I know, right?
Yeah, I feel for them. And but this is also why it's really important that I'm grateful that you brought this up because it does have an influence. And when other grown-ups and other parents can understand that we have this responsible level of responsibility, that we can really influence our children in a much more positive and healthy way. Well, being a parent and everything, but there's a better and easier way to do that. So I really appreciate you bringing that to the table and, planting that seed for other parents that are maybe going through similar things as well. So thank you.
Yeah. And for those parents, I would definitely encourage them to, what is it about your children that really upsets you? Like, when do you get really triggered, really impatient, really short tempered? And ask yourself, like, when you were a little kid, were you allowed to have feelings? Were you allowed to express those feelings? Or were you just put in your room and told to be quiet?
Probably not.
And
Yeah.
that's a whole thing. Even my client, she just finished her sessions and she did so well, but she had a really hard time tapping into her emotions. And because she had a hard time tapping into her emotions, she shut that down a long time ago as a safety
Yeah.
mechanism. She had a hard time with her children's emotions. So when her children would have their raw emotions, as children do, it would trigger her and she'd get very angry and very upset. One of the things that she told me on her last session was that she is so grateful that she went through the sessions and being able to go back into her childhood reminded her
Yeah.
of what it was like to be a child. And she's like, I'm going to be a better parent now. I'm going to be so much better with my kids. She's already taken steps to help them co-regulate because especially with small children, they have no ability to regulate. They need their parents to co-regulate for them.
Yeah.
And that's how they learn to regulate themselves.
Mm.
And so now she was able to step into that co-regulation because then she finally learned how to regulate herself. So her children's emotions don't trigger her anymore.
Mm. And
And that was I felt so proud of her. I was like, oh, that is so awesome. I was so happy for her.
absolutely. And what a gift that is,
Mhm.
that you're not only making a positive influence on her life, but also her kids' life. And then those kids go out in the world and then they're better
Mhm.
people because they're able to regulate their emotions. They understand that all feelings are good. 'Cause a lot of what we teach is emotional
Right.
wisdom, right?
Hmm.
And it just has these really huge ripple effects. And this is what happens when we follow our purpose and act on
Hmm.
our highest excitement and our
Hmm.
passions,
Hmm.
where we're all students and teachers and we influence those closest to us. And
Hmm.
so I love that. And
Yeah,
I think that's really just empowering as well too.
it is. And it's such a blessing. I mean, it's so fulfilling. Nothing compares to the feeling of doing what you know that you were called to do and going home at the end of the day. And even if you're tired and physically worn out, your heart is just so full.
Yeah.
And nothing compares to it, really.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I completely understand exactly what you mean. I mean, I wouldn't change what I do, like for the world.
Yeah.
Like I even say, if I ever won the lottery and brought in millions of dollars, I would still do this work.
Same. Yeah.
It's really important that we have heart-centered individuals such as yourself and other individuals too that are doing this work. And even if it's not doing hypnosis, but acting on your highest excitement, your purpose, and your passions, and then living in a life that is in alignment with your integrity, with your higher
Hmm.
calling, with your higher
Yeah.
self, whatever
Hmm.
that is going to make positive ripples
Hmm.
throughout your life and other people's lives. So even if you aren't doing like one-on-one hypnosis sessions with someone, like you're still making a positive influence
Right.
and inspiring others to act on their actions and excitements and things of that nature. Which is
Hmm.
again is the whole intention for why I'm even like doing all these interviews.
Hmm.
Because like the way that I look at it is even if that these videos, even if it could just inspire one person, like, you know what, I'm gonna go fuck around and find out.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
know what? I'm just gonna go do it. I'm scared, but I'm still just gonna go ahead and just do it for the plot.
Right.
Right. And maybe, just maybe, it might just work out for them. And then they'll look back at it and they'll be so grateful
Hmm.
that they did.
Hmm.
So that's my whole intention for this to inspire others to
And that's awesome.
act on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's so important too, especially with this new generation coming up. They may be struggling to find some purpose and stuff because our world's very messy right now, very chaotic,
Yeah.
but it's in there. And I know that it can be difficult and scary, but it's definitely in there. And I think everyone has just a really magnificent, I like to think of it as like a little energy flower. Like we all have this little energy flower in us, and then it ends up pollinating all these good feels and helps open up other people's heart flowers and stuff like that. Like we all have that capability within us.
I love that. We're like little bees.
They all
Yeah.
pollinating each other and stuff. Yeah. Whether it be like art, dance, even things logistical, like, you're really good at math or you're really good at science or something like that. And you end up helping build a better world with it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many different ways to do like activism.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And that there is not like a right or wrong way of doing it. And it's just like doing what is in alignment with yourself
Hmm.
and doing with what, lights you up and what gets you excited. And I think that so many of us are living a life without purpose and passion.
Hmm.
And that we just kind of like wake up, roll out of bed, like, oh, really? Monday again? Like,
Yeah.
this is the first time in like my adult life that I love Mondays.
Yeah.
Like I don't have the Sunday scaries like how a
Yeah.
lot of my clients do. Like it's, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm
Mhm.
also grateful that you're able to do this too.
Me too. And it has been absolutely life changing,
Yeah.
honestly.
Speaking of, how are people going to be able to like find you on like Facebook and socials and websites? Where can people find you?
So I do have a website, harmonioushypnosis.com. And then I also do have a Facebook for Harmonious Hypnosis as well, and Instagram. And I'm available email, phone, text. I actually prefer text sometimes
Same.
because I am such a millennial. But yeah, and I give free consultations, because people don't quite always know what hypnosis is.
Yeah.
And so I like to have the opportunity to be able to talk to them, go over what their goals are, and just get to know them and stuff like that. So yeah, if anyone's interested in reaching out, you can find me on social media or go to my website.
Thank you so much again for being here. If anyone wants to reach out for Crystal to chat even about Tai Chi or anything like that, please feel free to reach out. And thank you for hanging out with us today. And hopefully this was able to spark some purpose, some passion, and some excitement. Until next time, take care and breathe deeply.